The sleek diplomatic vessel of the Galactic Unity glided into Earth's orbit, its pearlescent hull reflecting the golden sunlight. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the Kennedy Space Center's observation deck, her heart racing with anticipation. Humanity's first contact was about to begin, though no one could have predicted just how unusual this meeting would become. Ambassador, the Unity delegation is requesting permission to land. Her assistant, Michael Torres, reported while adjusting his perfectly pressed uniform. They're being rather insistent about something called impact cushioning protocols. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Impact cushioning. For a standard landing. The Unity ship descended with almost glacial slowness, taking nearly an hour to complete what Earth ships routinely did in minutes. When the landing gear finally touched down, it did so with less force than a falling feather. The assembled human delegation exchanged puzzled glances. The ship's main door opened with a soft hiss, revealing the first aliens humanity would ever meet. The Unity representatives were tall, willowy beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer in the Florida sunshine. They moved with such deliberate care that they appeared to be walking in slow motion. Most honored and desperately fragile humans, the lead alien diplomat, Ambassador Excel, spoke in perfect English through their translation device. We have taken every precaution to ensure this meeting will not damage your delicate forms. Sarah stepped forward to greet them, extending her hand in the traditional Earth gesture of friendship. The entire alien delegation gasped in horror. Please, Ambassador Chen. Cell's translator warbled in distress. Such rapid movement could shatter your calcium supports. You must preserve your structural integrity. Before Sarah could respond, two Unity assistants rushed forward. At what humans would consider a snail's pace, with what appeared to be a floating cushion, gently placing it under her outstretched arm. I assure you, Ambassador Excel, I'm perfectly fine, Sarah said, trying to keep the amusement out of her voice. We humans are quite capable of supporting our own limbs. The Unity delegation chittered among themselves in their native language, their expressions showing what Sarah could only interpret as deep concern. When Michael shifted his weight from one foot to another, 3 more cushions were hastily deployed around him. We have prepared your transport to the conference facility, Cell announced, gesturing to what looked like the most over-engineered mobility scooters Sarah had ever seen. These gravity compensation units will ensure your bodies remain intact during transit. Sarah glanced at her team, seeing her own confusion reflected in their faces. Ambassador Excel, while we appreciate your thoughtfulness, we are perfectly capable of walking. The horror that crossed the alien faces would have been comical if it weren't so genuine. Walking? In full gravity? Surely you jest, Ambassador Chen. No species could survive such strain. To demonstrate her point, Sarah took a few normal steps forward. The Unity delegation nearly collapsed in collective anxiety, their iridescent skin fluctuating through a rainbow of concerned colors. Medical team, standing by. One of the aliens called out. The human ambassador is exhibiting signs of extreme risk-taking behavior. What followed was perhaps the slowest and most cushioned walk to a conference room in human history. Every step the human delegation took was accompanied by gasps and warnings from their alien hosts. The Unity team had lined the entire corridor with what appeared to be impact-absorbing gel and insisted on scanning each human for stress fractures every few meters. As they finally settled into the conference room, after the Unity team spent 20 minutes adjusting the chairs to what they considered safe levels, Sarah caught Michael's eye. He was biting his lip, clearly trying not to laugh at the absurdity of the situation. Now then, Sarah began, carefully picking up a datapad at what she hoped was a slow enough speed to not cause another panic. Shall we begin our diplomatic discussions? Ambassador Excel's translator chimed in with concern. Please, Ambassador Chen, allow our safety team to support the datapad's weight. We cannot bear to watch your delicate appendages strain under such a burden. Sarah realized this was going to be a very long first contact indeed. As another cushion was hastily placed under her datapad, She couldn't help but wonder what other surprises this interstellar culture clash would bring. Dr. James Patel rubbed his eyes, staring at the data scrolling across his laboratory screens at the International Space Research Center. Something about the Unity physiological data wasn't adding up, and he'd spent the last 72 hours trying to figure out what. Run the comparative analysis again, he muttered to himself, taking another sip of his now cold coffee. The holographic display flickered, overlaying human and Unity biological structures side by side. The door slid open, and Dr. Emma Rodriguez walked in, carrying fresh coffee and a concerned expression. "James, you haven't left this lab since the Unity shared their medical database. What's got you so fascinated?" "Look at these bone density readings," James pointed to the display. "At first, I thought our equipment was malfunctioning, but I verified it 20 times. The Unity species has approximately 1/3 the bone density we do, but their medical records show this is perfectly healthy for them." Emma set down the coffee and leaned in, her scientific curiosity piqued. "That doesn't make sense. How do they support their own weight?" James's fingers flew across the holographic interface, pulling up more data. "That's what led me down this rabbit hole. I started analyzing their planetary data, atmospheric composition, solar radiation, and then it hit me." He highlighted a specific set of numbers. "Look at their homeworld's gravitational force." Emma's eyes widened. "That can't be right. 0.31 Earth gravity. Every Unity world we have data for shows similar readings. Their entire civilization developed in low-gravity environments. When they call us fragile, they're not being condescending. They genuinely believe we're somehow surviving under crushing gravitational pressure." The implications started cascading through Emma's mind. The cushions, the slow movements, their horror at us walking around. "Exactly," James nodded, pulling up video footage from the first contact meeting. "Watch Ambassador Chen pick up the datapad again." To the Unity, she just casually lifted what they would consider an almost immovable weight. The laboratory door opened again, and Ambassador Chen herself walked in, followed by two very distressed Unity scientists who were trying to convince her to use their gravity compensation device. "Dr. Patel, please tell me you have something that explains why our guests keep trying to bubble wrap me," Sarah said with a hint of exasperation. James quickly outlined his findings, watching understanding dawn on the ambassador's face. The Unity scientists, meanwhile, were becoming increasingly agitated as they followed the conversation. "You mean to tell us," one of them interrupted, their translation device trembling, "that you've been enduring more than 3 times standard gravitational force your entire existence?" "Standard for you, perhaps," Emma explained gently. "For us, Earth's gravity is perfectly normal. We evolved under these conditions." The Unity scientists conferred rapidly in their native language, their skin shifting through shades of blue and green that James had learned indicated extreme amazement and concern. "We must validate this immediately," the second Unity scientist declared. "Though we fear for your safety in attempting any physical demonstration." James walked to the corner of the lab and picked up a 20-kilogram weight with ease. The Unity scientists swayed on their feet, their translation devices buzzing with distress signals. "Impossible," they exclaimed. "By our calculations, lifting such a mass in this gravity should shatter your skeletal structure." Sarah, seeing an opportunity for both scientific understanding and diplomatic progress, suggested a practical demonstration. Under carefully controlled conditions, they set up a simple experiment comparing the physical capabilities of both species. The results were undeniable. Tasks the humans considered routine, climbing stairs, opening doors, lifting small objects, were physically demanding or impossible for the Unity visitors without mechanical assistance in Earth's gravity. "This changes everything," Sarah mused, watching the Unity scientists frantically updating their databases. Their entire perception of us as a fragile species was based on their own physical limitations, James finished. They assumed no species could function under what they consider extreme conditions. As if to prove his point, A young laboratory assistant jogged past the window, causing the Unity scientists to activate their emergency medical beacons in panic. "I believe," Sarah said with a diplomatic smile, "that we need to update our first contact protocols, and perhaps explain that humans don't actually need impact cushions to walk down a hallway." The Galactic Unity Assessment Center hung in low orbit around their capital world, its crystalline structure gleaming against the star-studded backdrop of space. Inside, Maria Santos, Earth's former Olympic gymnast, stood patiently while Unity officials triple-checked her safety restraints. These physical capability tests are a standard requirement for all new species, the Unity evaluator explained, hovering anxiously nearby. "Though we've modified the course extensively for your unique circumstances." Maria glanced at Dr. James Patel, who was trying not to smile. After his gravity discovery, he'd been appointed as humanity's scientific liaison for these trials. "Modified how, exactly?" she asked. "We've reduced all physical requirements by 70% and installed additional emergency medical stations," the evaluator said proudly. "The course should now be safely manageable for your species." The testing chamber was massive, filled with what the Unity considered challenging obstacles. To Maria, it looked like a beginner's playground. The first challenge was labeled Extreme Endurance Test. Warning: do not attempt without safety protocols. Please proceed with extreme caution, the evaluator instructed. The task is to walk continuously for 1 standard hour. You may rest whenever needed, and medical assistance is available at the slightest sign of distress. Maria stepped onto the track, suppressing a grin. "Just walking. Nothing else. We would never require more than that. The strain would be unthinkable." She began walking at a normal human pace. The assembled Unity observers gasped collectively, their monitoring devices beeping an alarm. "Ambassador Chen," one official called out frantically, "your citizen is moving at dangerous speeds. The physical stress must be enormous." Sarah Chen, watching from the observation deck, replied diplomatically, "I assure you, Maria is quite comfortable. In fact," she paused as Maria broke into a light jog. The testing chamber erupted into chaos. Emergency lights flashed, and medical teams rushed to their stations. The evaluator was practically vibrating with anxiety. "This is unprecedented," they exclaimed. "No species has ever." She's still accelerating. Maria, now thoroughly enjoying herself, completed an hour of running without breaking a sweat. The Unity officials huddled around their instruments, chittering in disbelief. "Perhaps," Maria suggested, "you'd like to see what humans consider actual exercise." Before anyone could stop her, she launched into a basic tumbling routine. The sight of a human voluntarily leaving the ground sent several Unity observers into a protective stance. When she struck a perfect landing, the entire chamber fell silent. "Impossible," the evaluator whispered. "The gravitational forces alone should have." Dr. Patel stepped forward, data tablet in hand. "I believe we need to establish a new testing protocol, one that actually challenges human capabilities." The next several hours redefined everything the Unity thought they knew about physical limitations. Maria demonstrated jumping, climbing, and lifting exercises that their scientists had previously considered theoretically impossible. "But how do you prevent your bones from collapsing?" one fascinated Unity scientist asked as Maria performed push-ups. "Years of evolution under Earth's gravity," James explained. "What you see as extraordinary is simply normal human capability." The final test involved what the Unity called their impossible challenge, moving a 100-kilogram weight 3 meters in standard gravity. It was meant to be theoretical, a demonstration of physical limits. Maria lifted it with one hand. "I believe," Sarah announced to the stunned officials, "we need to discuss revising the Unity species classification system." The evaluator, still shaking slightly, began computing the results. "According to our metrics, humans have exceeded every recorded benchmark by factors we cannot even measure. We have no classification category for this level of physical capability." Maria, who had started doing pull-ups out of boredom, called down, "Does this mean we passed?" The Unity officials watched in renewed horror as she casually dropped from the exercise bar, landing easily on her feet. "Passed." The evaluator's translator crackled with amazement. "Ambassador Chen, your species hasn't just passed. You've completely destroyed our understanding of what's physically possible. The Unity Council will need to be informed immediately." Sarah nodded diplomatically, while trying not to laugh at a Unity medical team rushing to scan Maria for what they assumed must be catastrophic internal injuries. "Perhaps," she suggested gently, "we should demonstrate some other human athletic activities. I believe the concept of parkour might interest you." The evaluator fainted. The Unity Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display flickered to life, showing surveillance footage from their outer colony on Proxima Beta. The scene unfolded in horrifying clarity. Massive scaled figures moving with startling speed through the settlement's corridors, easily overwhelming the Unity's defensive systems. Ambassador Sarah Chen leaned forward, studying the attackers' movements. Unlike the graceful, deliberate motions of the Unity species, these creatures moved with purposeful aggression. Their builds were stockier, more muscular, though still not comparable to human physiology. "The Krill," High Counselor Vex announced, their voice heavy with concern. "They emerged from the unexplored regions 3 cycles ago. Our defenses have proved inadequate." Another recording played, showing a Krill warrior casually tossing aside a Unity security barrier designed to withstand significant force. The council members shuddered collectively at the display of strength. "Their home world has 0.8 Earth gravity," Dr. James Patel whispered to Sarah. "Stronger than the Unity species, but still significantly weaker than humans." Sarah nodded, watching as more footage revealed the systematic takeover of Unity outposts. The pattern was clear. The Krill were exploiting their physical advantages, knowing the Unity species couldn't match their strength. "How many colonies have been lost?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice carefully neutral. 17 in the outer sectors," Vex replied. "Our people are evacuating border worlds, but the Krill ships are faster, stronger. They seem to enjoy demonstrating their physical superiority." The chamber's lighting shifted to a somber blue as more tactical data appeared. Red markers indicated fallen colonies, spreading like a virus across the Unity star charts. "Our scientists designed enhanced battle suits," another council member added, their skin flickering with distress patterns. "But even with mechanical assistance, our forces cannot withstand direct confrontation. The gravitational differences are too extreme." Sarah exchanged glances with Captain Li Jin-ho, Earth's military representative. He gave her a subtle nod, understanding passing between them. What the Unity considered an insurmountable physical advantage was, by human standards, still well within manageable limits. "The Unity Council," Vex continued, their translator struggling to convey their emotion, "finds itself in an unprecedented position. We are a peaceful coalition, but the Krill respect only physical power. They believe their adaptation to higher gravity makes them unstoppable." A new recording played, showing a Krill leader broadcasting their demands. The alien's scaled face filled the display, mandibles clicking as they spoke. "Your worlds are now under the protection of the strong." The translation read, "Weakness has no place in the galaxy. Submit to those who can bear the weight of true gravity." Sarah stood, drawing the council's attention. "The Unity has been a friend to Earth since first contact. While we're still finalizing our membership protocols, we cannot stand by while these attacks continue." Ambassador Chen. Vex's skin rippled with hope tinged with worry. "We cannot ask your fragile species to face such powerful adversaries. The gravitational stress alone." "High Counselor," Sarah interrupted gently, "I believe it's time we showed you humanity's full capabilities. Captain Lee, would you share the defense assessment?" Lee stepped forward, activating his own data display. The chamber filled with statistics from the human physical trials, combat simulations, and gravitational stress tests. The council's collective gasp echoed through the chamber. "These readings," one scientist exclaimed, "they cannot be accurate. No species could maintain such physical capabilities." "I assure you, they're accurate," Sarah said firmly. "What the krill consider their greatest advantage, their high-gravity adaptation, is still only a fraction of humanity's baseline strength." The implications slowly dawned on the council. Vex's skin shifted to a deep purple of realization. "You mean to tell us," they said slowly, "that your species could effectively resist the krill invasion force?" Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "More than resist, High Counselor. But first, we need to discuss joint defense protocols. The krill believe themselves physically superior to all other species. I believe it's time they learned otherwise." The council chamber erupted in excited chittering as hope, for the first time since the invasion began, entered their discussions. In orbit above, the first human defense ships were already moving into position, their crews ready to demonstrate just what true gravity really meant. The Unity Defense Command Center buzzed with activity as Captain Lee Jin-ho led his team through the final equipment check. The reinforced combat suits provided by Unity engineers hung in their storage pods, each one designed to protect against what the aliens considered crushing gravitational forces. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Martinez whispered, trying not to alarm their Unity hosts, "these suits are like wearing air cushions. We can barely move properly in them." Lee nodded, watching as Unity technicians scurried around, constantly adjusting safety parameters. "Keep our standard gear prepped but hidden. We don't want to cause a diplomatic incident before the mission even starts." Across the command center, Unity officials monitored their sensors with increasing distress. Another colony had gone dark, falling to the krill advance. The display showed the invaders' ships moving with confident precision, expecting no meaningful resistance. Captain Lee, Chief Engineer Zix approached, their iridescent skin flickering with concern. "We've modified the combat suits further. The gravitational compensation fields are now operating at maximum capacity." Lee smiled diplomatically, remembering Ambassador Chen's briefing about Unity sensitivities. "Thank you, Chief Engineer. Your attention to our safety is appreciated." The human team suited up, pretending not to notice how the Unity staff flinched every time they moved at normal speed. The aliens had even installed emergency medical pods every 10 meters along the corridors, convinced that human bodies would crumble under standard gravity. "Mission briefing in 5 minutes," Commander Rodriguez announced, checking her tablet. The gathered Unity officers stared in horror as she walked to the briefing room without using the provided hover transport. Inside the secure chamber, holographic displays showed their target, a Unity science station recently seized by krill forces. The station's gravity was set to 0.8 Earth normal, which had the Unity tactical team extremely concerned about human survival. "The krill have never encountered your species," Strategy Coordinator Ven explained, their translator quivering. "But please, do not attempt any heroics. Your safety suits will help you survive the gravity, but rapid movement could still prove fatal." Lee exchanged glances with his team. They'd all read Dr. Patel's reports on krill physiology. What the invaders considered their greatest strength would prove to be their greatest surprise. "Team 2, ready for deployment," Lieutenant Martinez reported, her voice steady despite the Unity medical officer frantically scanning her for stress fractures. "Remember," Ven pleaded, "if the gravitational strain becomes too much, the emergency extraction protocols will not be necessary," Lee assured them firmly. "Trust us." The Unity command staff watched in collective anxiety as the human team boarded their shuttle. They'd insisted on filling the vessel with impact-absorbing gel, convinced that standard acceleration would shatter human bones. "Launch sequence initiated," the Unity traffic controller announced, maintaining minimum gravitational stress vectors. The shuttle lifted off with all the speed of a drifting feather, the Unity engineers having locked out anything they considered dangerous acceleration. Lee knew they'd need to override those safeties once they were out of visual range. "Control, this is Captain Lee," he transmitted. "We're proceeding to the target, and thank you for your concern about our welfare." The Unity commander's response crackled through. "Please, Captain, do not take unnecessary risks. We've never lost a species to gravitational trauma, and we don't want to start now." As the shuttle cleared the defense perimeter, Lee turned to his team. "All right, people, time to show the galaxy what humans can really do. Martinez, override their safety protocols. Rodriguez, prep the actual combat gear. Let's give both the Unity and the Krill a lesson in Earth gravity." The team efficiently stowed the bulky Unity safety suits, donning their standard-issue combat armor instead. Through the viewport, they could see their destination, the captured science station gleaming against the star-filled backdrop. "Sir," Martinez reported with a slight grin, "Unity Command is still monitoring our life signs. Should I tell them why our heart rates are perfectly normal?" Lee shook his head, allowing himself a small smile. "Let's save that explanation for after we show them what humans consider actual physical activity. Set course for the station. It's time to demonstrate why Earth gravity makes all the difference." The first indication that something was very different about these new attackers came when Captain Lee's team breached the science station's outer airlock. The Krill guards, accustomed to overwhelming their opponents with superior strength, found themselves suddenly airborne as Lieutenant Martinez executed what she considered a gentle takedown. "Control, first contact with hostiles," Lee reported calmly, watching his team move through the corridors with practiced ease. "Resistance is minimal." Through the command channel, he could hear Unity observers chittering in disbelief as they monitored the situation. The Krill's supposedly overwhelming physical advantages were proving remarkably unimpressive against Earthborn humans. "That's impossible," a Unity scientist exclaimed over the comm. "Your body should be collapsing under these gravitational conditions." Commander Rodriguez secured another junction, casually subduing two Krill warriors who seemed genuinely shocked that their strongest blows barely registered against her armor. "Should we tell them this is us taking it easy?" she whispered to Lee. The station's internal cameras captured everything, broadcasting the unprecedented scene to Unity Command. Humans moving at full speed, executing combat maneuvers that both Unity and Krill had considered physically impossible. The footage would later become legendary across the galaxy. "Central Lab, 3 hostiles," Martinez reported, peering around a corner. "They're barricading the entrance with what they think is heavy equipment." Lee nodded. "Remember, minimal force. We're here to end this conflict, not escalate it." The team moved in, and the Krill's confidence evaporated as they watched Martinez single-handedly move aside the barricade they'd struggled to create as a group. Their mandibles clicked in obvious distress as they realized their physical superiority had suddenly become meaningless. "In the name of the strong, we demand," the Krill leader began, but fell silent as Commander Rodriguez simply picked him up with one hand. "I believe," Lee said calmly, "we need to have a discussion about your definition of strength." The Unity observation team was practically hyperventilating as they watched the feeds. Their medical officers had stopped trying to make sense of the humans' vital signs, which showed no strain despite what they considered extreme physical exertion. "Captain," a Krill warrior asked, mandibles trembling, "what manner of beings are you?" "We're human," Martinez answered, still holding a massive door open with one arm, a door that had taken 3 Krill to budge. "We come from a place called Earth." The effect of that name was immediate. The remaining Krill resistance crumbled as word spread through their ranks about the species that could outmatch them in raw physical power without even trying. "Unity Command," Lee transmitted, "Station is secure. All hostiles contained with 0 casualties. Permission to begin evacuation procedures." The response was delayed, likely because the Unity commanders were still trying to process what they'd witnessed. When it came, the translator could barely keep up with their excited tones. "Captain Lee," High Commander Vex's voice shook, "our sensors must be malfunctioning. They show your team performing feats that violate known physical limitations. Sensors are working perfectly, Command. Lee confirmed, watching as his team efficiently processed the Krill prisoners. Though I suggest we update those limitations in your database. The station's gravity suddenly fluctuated as the Krill tried one last desperate measure, increasing it to what they considered a crushing level. The effect on the human team was precisely none. Did something change? Martins asked, genuinely puzzled as she continued her tasks without noticing the increased gravitational force. The Krill commander, watching this display, finally surrendered formally. We believed ourselves supreme, he admitted, having evolved in higher gravity than most. But you make our strength seem insignificant. Lee helped a Unity scientist to their feet, the alien still trembling in the increased gravity. Strength isn't about superiority, he said firmly. It's about how you use what you have. As the human team secured the station, the Unity Command's transmissions were filled with amazed chatter about rewriting their understanding of physical possibilities. And somewhere in the distance, on other occupied Unity worlds, Krill forces were about to learn an important lesson about making assumptions about species they'd never encountered. The Unity Scientific Council's emergency session had been running for 12 straight hours. Dr. James Patel stood before the assembled aliens, surrounded by floating displays showing human physiological data, combat footage from the station recovery, and comparative gravity studies. As you can see, James gestured to a holographic skeleton. Human bone density isn't just higher than Unity standard. It's beyond what your models previously considered possible for carbon-based life forms. The council chamber was unusually quiet, its members transfixed by the data streams. High researcher licks, their scales shimmering with intellectual excitement, moved closer to examine a cellular structure display. Fascinating, they whispered through their translator. The calcium lattice formations in your skeletal structure. They're arranged in patterns we've never observed. Your species didn't just adapt to heavy gravity. You thrived in it. Commander Rodriguez, invited to demonstrate human capabilities, stood calmly in the chamber center. The Unity scientists had gradually increased the gravity to Earth normal levels, watching in amazement as she remained completely unaffected. The implications are staggering. Another council member noted, their skin flickering through shades of academic interest. Every assessment we made about human fragility was based on our own physiological limitations. James nodded, bringing up new data from the station recovery mission. What you considered safety protocols were actually restrictions. Those reinforced suits you provided. They limited human movement more than they helped. The footage showed Lieutenant Martinez performing a standard combat role, a maneuver that caused several Unity medical officers to activate their emergency beacons in panic. Yet the biometric data clearly showed her vital signs remaining stable. But surely, Lix interjected, such constant resistance against gravitational force must cause immense internal stress. Professor Emma Rodriguez, who had joined the research team, stepped forward. Actually, our bodies are perfectly adapted to these conditions. What you see as extraordinary physical resilience is simply our natural state. The display shifted to show a comparison between krill and human muscle structure. The council's excitement was palpable as they realized the true scale of difference between what they had considered superior strength and actual human capabilities. We must completely revise our xenobiological classification system, High Researcher Lix declared. Create an entirely new category for heavy world evolved species. The medical implications alone. There's more, James added, revealing new data about human cardiovascular systems. Our endurance capabilities exceed both Unity and Krill standards by several factors. What you consider dangerous extended physical activity is barely a warm-up for humans. The council chambers erupted in scientific discussion, theories and implications flying back and forth. Unity researchers were already proposing new studies, eager to understand how humans had achieved what they had previously considered impossible. Ambassador Chen, watching from the observation deck with Captain Lee, smiled as another Unity scientist fainted upon seeing the pressure resistance tests. "I believe," she said diplomatically, "this changes the nature of our alliance considerably." Lee nodded, remembering the Krill's faces when they realized their gravitational advantage meant nothing against Earth-born humans. From being considered fragile to being classified as physically superior. Quite a shift in perspective. In the chamber below, the council had moved on to studying human athletic records. The concept of Olympic gymnastics had several researchers questioning their understanding of physics itself. "What interests me most," Emma commented, highlighting a cellular comparison, "is how this changes our combined medical research potential. Imagine what we could learn from each other." James agreed, watching as the Unity scientists excitedly compiled their findings. The classified report would need a new designation. They had suggested ultra-heavy world adaptation as a category. The session concluded with a formal declaration. Human physiology would be recognized as a prime example of evolutionary adaptation to high-gravity environments. The Unity database was updated, removing all references to human fragility and replacing them with more accurate assessments. As the council members filed out, still buzzing with scientific excitement, Ambassador Chen approached the research team. "Well done," she said warmly. "Though I suspect we'll be dealing with overprotective Unity medical officers for quite some time." Right on cue, a Unity doctor rushed forward with a gravity compensation device, deeply concerned about the humans standing for so long in what they still considered dangerous conditions. Some perspectives, it seemed, would take longer to change than others. The Antarctic International Unity Center rose from the frozen landscape like a crystal blooming in the snow, its transparent domes reflecting the southern auroras. Inside, Ambassador Sarah Chen watched as the first group of Unity diplomats experienced Earth gravity under carefully controlled conditions. "Remarkable," High Counselor Vex commented from their reduced gravity observation pod. "To think your species lives with such forces constantly, yet builds structures of such delicacy." The facility represented humanity's commitment to interstellar cooperation. One section maintained standard Earth gravity for human staff, while interconnected domes provided varying gravitational levels for different species. The engineering itself was a testament to human ingenuity and Unity technological expertise. "The gravity adaptation chamber is ready," Dr. James Patel announced, monitoring the controls. "We can begin with 15% Earth normal and gradually increase it over time." The Unity visitors watched in fascination as human scientists moved effortlessly between gravity zones, their bodies naturally adjusting to the changes. What had once caused panic among Unity medical staff was now studied with academic interest. "The Krill delegation arrives tomorrow," Sarah reminded them, checking her tablet. "They've specifically requested a demonstration of human physical capabilities. I believe they're still trying to understand how their invasion failed so completely." Commander Rodriguez, now serving as the facility's security chief, smiled at the memory. "They've become remarkably cooperative since discovering they're not the strongest species in the galaxy." The center's main hall displayed historical footage from first contact, showing how far both societies had come. The initial scenes of Unity staff frantically trying to protect fragile humans now served as a gentle reminder about the dangers of assumptions. Professor Rodriguez, a young Unity researcher, called out, their scales shimmering with excitement. "The combined gravity resistance training is showing remarkable results. Some of our volunteers can now tolerate up to 20% Earth normal." Emma Rodriguez beamed with pride. The joint research program was exceeding all expectations, benefiting both species in unexpected ways. Unity physiologists were developing new techniques to strengthen their bodies, while human scientists gained insights into adapting to lower gravities. Ambassador Chen, Captain Lee approached, tablet in hand. "The first Unity human joint defense fleet is ready for inspection. The ships have been modified with variable gravity sections." Sarah nodded approvingly. The new fleet design represented true cooperation. Unity technological sophistication combined with human physical capability. The ships could operate in any gravitational environment, their crews working together regardless of their evolutionary origins. To think, Vex mused, watching the human child easily playing in what their species considered crushing gravity. We once thought you needed constant protection. Now you're helping protect the entire galaxy. The facility's medical wing had become a hub of xenobiological research. Unity doctors studied human physiology with newfound respect, while human physicians learned the intricacies of low-gravity adaptation. Together, they were developing treatments that would have been impossible for either species alone. The cultural exchange program is flourishing, Sarah reported, pulling up the latest statistics. More humans are visiting Unity worlds, while Unity citizens are increasingly curious about Earth, even if they can only experience it through our reduced gravity facilities. In the training center, Lieutenant Martinez was demonstrating Earth martial arts to a fascinated group of Unity security officers. Their movements were careful and precise in the reduced gravity, learning to adapt their natural grace to more dynamic techniques. The Unity Council has officially recognized Earth as a Class 5 heavy world, Vex announced proudly. The highest classification in our planetary database. Your species has literally raised the bar for what we thought possible. Sarah smiled, remembering those first awkward meetings where every human movement caused panic among their alien hosts. Now, Unity children learned about Earth in their science classes, marveling at the species that thrived under such incredible pressures. We've prepared a special ceremony, she said, leading the group toward the main conference room. A formal recognition of our partnership and the opening of the first Unity embassy on Earth. As they walked, some floating in gravity suits, others striding normally, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. From being seen as fragile creatures needing protection to becoming respected allies, humans had changed the Unity's understanding of strength itself. The Antarctic facility stood as a symbol of this new understanding, a place where different gravities meant different perspectives, and where working together meant learning from each other's natural adaptations. It was, quite literally, a new center of gravity for interstellar cooperation.